Ulavinaka, this is Pacific Waves from RNZ Pacific. I'm Elisha Foon. Coming up.
Let us learn from the lessons of the past.
The British monarchy's legacy is in the spotlight as small island nations grapple with impacts of colonialism and slavery. Also,
we get to Dubai and I check in and go, the girls get an allowance and they don't have any money to pay me.
The Samoa women's rugby team speaks out on overcoming hardship and neglect in order to return to the world stage. And the Australian government's plans to start an NRL rugby league club in Papua New Guinea. The British monarchy's legacy is in the spotlight as small island nations consider lessons of the past involving colonialism and slavery. It comes as Samoa officially welcomed all 56 leaders of the Commonwealth nations, with King Charles delivering his first address as the head of Commonwealth. Susana Suisuiki has been in Apia and was at the meeting's official opening ceremony on Friday.
Let us learn from the lessons of the past. Let us be proud of who we are today, and together let us forge a future of harmony with nature and between ourselves that our children and our grandchildren deserve.
Delivering his first address as the head of the Commonwealth, King Charles III has been widely embraced by the people of Samoa. Since arriving on Wednesday night alongside Queen Camilla, the royal couple have spent the last few days engaging with locals, partaking in traditional ceremonies, and the king has even been bestowed a chiefly title. However, their visit to Australia and Samoa has prompted discussions surrounding the British monarchy's legacy.
My people have been protesting for decades and decades, as you all know, for exactly this. And so the message has been sent, delivered. Now it's up to the King of England to respond.
It's understood that African and Caribbean leaders are wanting financial reparations for slavery to be included in the outcomes, but so far the Commonwealth Secretary General, Patricia Scotland, has been tight-lipped. However, for the Pacific, priorities are different. This was stressed by Samoa's Prime Minister, Fiame Naomi Mataafa, in her address.
The hosting of CHOGM 2024 in the Pacific is a great opportunity for all to experience our lived reality, especially with climate change. It is the greatest threat to the survival and security of our Pacific people.
Traditional Pacific performances from youths and choral singing soon followed after these speeches, setting the tone of the meeting. On Saturday, there will be a leaders' retreat and an executive session. Outcomes, including a communique, declarations, and a leader statement, will be issued that evening.
The Samoa women's rugby team are speaking up about the hardship and neglect they have had to overcome to finally return to the World Cup arena. Monusina Samoa have qualified for next year's tournament in England, which will be their fourth World Cup appearance since 2014. Grace Fiava'ai has more.
As Manusina prepares to return to the World Cup stage for the first time in over a decade, their woes off the pitch continue, with Lakapi Samoa still facing financial scrutiny. But the coach and team say they remain hopeful and continue to fight as strong Samoan women, and that breaking their silence is about getting the country behind them. Manusina captain Masuisui Matamali Tawasa Pawaraisa says they've made it this far because it was never about the money, but for the love of rugby and their country. At times, Pawaraisa says they were paid as little as 130 to 300 New Zealand dollars for an entire tournament, with gear arriving late, if at all. But she says they have their eye firmly set on the prize, which is to do well at the Women's Rugby World Cup.
We're so proud of being Samoan and just putting that blue jersey on. You know, we didn't really look at it. It was for money. We got given 300 NZ money in Samoa for that first week. But I had a feel, because I've been in this space for long, I knew it was the 300 going into Dubai.
She says despite the lack of finances and controversy at Lakapi Samoa, their team is grateful for their coach, who has had to reach into his own pockets to pay the players.
It was coming towards the end, and it was going towards the last week of our campaign, and we got given another $300 in said money. But that money didn't come out of the union. It was out of Ramsey's pocket.
Mata'afa Ramsey Tomokino, coach for the Manusina, says he's had to step up and provide for the players more than once.
The union's in bad shape. It's probably the worst it's ever been. I've personally had to put into my own pocket for Oceania. The girls got an amount of money in Samoa. We get to Dubai and I check in and go, the girls get an allowance and they don't have any money to pay anything. So I make a decision to pay the girls.
In an email response to RNZ Pacific's queries about Manusina's grievances, Lakapi Samoa Chief Executive Whaleo Mavaenga Vincent Fepuleai says there is no hiding from the fact that the union is in serious financial difficulty. He says the union has not recovered since post-COVID and is continually playing catch-up.
In a lengthy email response, Whaleo Mavaenga Vincent Fepuleai says there is no hiding from the fact the union is in serious financial difficulty. He says it had to cancel the Manu Samoa Northern Hemisphere tour, the first time in 20 plus years this has happened, to repay outstanding debt without hemorrhaging more funds. He also says the union has not recovered from the COVID-19 pandemic and is continually playing catch-up. This has been made worse by commercial deals not returning yields and a lack of sponsors and funding for the union. Whaleo Mavaenga says all of this, along with late payments of grants and more recent issues with the union's apparel supplier, have hampered Lakapi Samoa from being able to support the Manusina allowances. He says in subsequent discussions, Lakapi Samoa has earmarked some upcoming funding for the Manusina team and continue to work on achieving parity for them with Manu Samoa.
Despite all of their trials and tribulations, the silver lining for the Manusina after qualifying for the World Cup was getting to play Australia in front of their home fans. The first time in 15 years they have had the opportunity to do so.
We play Australia and Samoa, and that was very humbling. It was very good to go back to see our people. We hadn't been to Samoa for 15 years. Players had, playing in front of their grandparents, had never watched them play before.
They beat Australia 20-17, but in the end it wasn't about the result.
To win the game, in the final minute, with another Cassie Siatangi kick from about 40-something metres out, it was just pretty special. I wasn't focused on the result because we just needed a game. But we got the win and it was just icing on the cake.
Paua Raisa says as a collective they all need to do better, and she appreciates all the community support for the team and their Rugby World Cup campaign.
The union needed to be better, and the journey hasn't been easy, especially on the financial side. I think we really need people to jump on board and support us, because I believe this team has a heart and they love this jersey, especially playing for our people.
The Kiribati presidential election has led to one of the three candidates from the ruling Tobwaan Kiribati Party breaking away to form a new alliance, challenging the incumbent President Taniti Mamau. Mamau had used his party's overwhelming majority after the election in August to block opposition parties' nominations for president. Voting closed at 6 p.m. local time, and a result is expected over the weekend. Karoi Hawkins has more.
Yes, this morning about half an hour ago, I voted, and I'm sitting in the hut with my supporters, and they are aware of what's happening now. An alliance of three small groups have joined, and they've nominated Costa as the candidate for the post of the president. And I'm very hopeful that we're going to win the game.
Was this unexpected? Was there any inkling that Kusitake would break away again?
Yeah, it was mentioned, it was rumored when I was on Tarawa, but we ignore the rumor because we want the person himself to contact our group and to make an announcement that he is changed from the government side. And when I left Tarawa on the 7th of last month, I understand our supporters on South Tarawa have been able to meet him. And as a result of that meeting, they've agreed now to support him. So it send out all their advices. And we also put on a post on the local Facebook explaining our side of the story. And I suspect that a post has helped in a small way to convince the people of the need to change.
And tell us a bit about Kausitake Kokore himself. He is one of the newly elected MPs, is that right?
Yes, it's very new. We don't know much about him, and it's not easy to support him. But as I said, we have no other option anyway.
You talked about your campaign and what you told people. What was the message there? What was the message? You mentioned the message for change, but what were the details of that message for change?
No, well, when I first came from Sarawak on the 7th of September, I visited all the villages and advised them that we should boycott the election because it is not fair to have one person only in the race in terms of the party as well. Since my visit to all the villages, then there has been a development. And the development is our supporters on South Sarawak and Bayshore agree to endorse this guy. So I've started then again to talk to. I talk to all our councillors on the island and people that I know and advise them of the new message. And the message is that we're going to support this new guy.
Turning to the nuts and bolts of the election, so polls close at 6 p.m. Is that correct?
Yes.
And counting will continue into Saturday with the result expected on Saturday?
Yep, or earlier, yep.
And what happens next?
All right. Well, whoever wins this election will be the next president, and it's going to go to Sarawak, and it's going to form a government, and the rest will fall in places. And it's going to choose its cabinet and so on.
And when is the next sitting of Parliament?
On the 2nd of December. And I've booked myself to go to Sarawak on the 18th of November.
More details have emerged about the Australian government's plan to help fund the establishment of an NRL rugby league club in Papua New Guinea. Canberra is offering 600 million Australian dollars over 10 years for the prospective club, on condition that the PNG government does not sign a security deal with China. The Australian government views the offer as an expression of soft power, exploiting the huge love for rugby league that exists in PNG. Don Wiseman asked Gordon Peake from the US Institute of Peace what he thought of the offer.
I was flabbergasted, Don, whenever the journalist contacted me to ask for quotes for the story. Initially, as you say, Papua New Guineans love rugby league. It's inscribed and metabolized, I think, in many Papua New Guineans' hearts as a love for it. And Australia has been offering to support Papua New Guinea's efforts to join the National Rugby League for at least a couple of years now, and it was often styled as being a soft power initiative, leveraging something that Australia had, a love of rugby league itself, and a way of kind of emboldening itself or strengthening the relationship it had with Papua New Guineans. It always struck me as being a tremendously generous offer on Australia's part, a very expensive offer on Australia's part as well. But then last week we learned that there was more to it than that, which was that the support is reportedly contingent upon Papua New Guinea agreeing to not do something. And the not do something has nothing to do with sport per se. It has a lot to do with the game of statecraft and power politics that is going on in the Pacific at the minute. And that's to commit to not signing up to a policing defense agreement arrangement with China.
Yes. So rather than soft power, it's as hard power can be, just about.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, you put it really well.
Can it work?
It's kind of hard to see at face value how it can work, Don. I mean, you've got sort of almost two completely different things going on at the same time. You've got support for this rugby league entry into the NRL, and then you've got a policing arrangement or a non-policing arrangement going on at the same time. And when you kind of put your mind to it, you think, how do these two things go together? I mean, let's say, for example, Australia's support for Papua New Guinea's rugby league bid continues, and all indications are that it will. And then at some point in the future, a Papua New Guinean government minister or the Papua New Guinean government makes intimations or signs up to a policing pact with China. I mean, what's going to happen there? You know, is the team going to take its footy and go home, proverbially? Are the team going to not play in the NRL anymore? There seemed like such different sort of planes of action that it's hard to see how it would work in practice.
There's also a major issue if it was to fall over at this point, given that it's enthused these people, these fans of rugby league in PNG. There's the possibility of it having a very negative effect.
That's right. Though it's interesting, Don. I mean, in my own kind of reporting on this, I did a podcast series with the University of Adelaide called State Craftiness, and we had an episode dedicated to this. And we hired a young journalist who went around the streets of Port Moresby asking Papua New Guineans what they thought about rugby league. And two things came out clearly, which was one, yes, we love rugby league very much, but secondly, a kind of ambivalence about the amount of money that was being spent on supporting the bid. There was a sense of, well, couldn't this money be spent more urgently on priorities like health and education? The people that we interviewed for the podcast were, I think, in many ways a few months ahead of analysts like myself and many journalists in that they kind of twigged that there was something going on as well. And they really questioned as to why Australia was investing so much time and effort in this. But you're right. I mean, face and losing face is an important feature in all forms of politics and diplomacy. And Australia will not want to lose face by the bid falling over, and Papua New Guinea's leaders will not want to lose face by the bid falling over either. I mean, they've been pretty enthusiastic backers of the bid, and there's a huge amount of sports-related diplomacy that Australia certainly engages with, you know, every time there's a state of origin going on or when the NRL Grand Final is going on. Papua New Guinean politicians and leaders are flown to Australia in order to meet up with Australian political leaders. So all the indications are this will continue. And it's hard to see that there could be tremendous egg on everyone's face if it falls over at this point.
That's Pacific Waves for today. For all episodes, head over to rnz.co.nz/Pacific. We're also on Spotify, Apple and iHeartRadio. From myself and the RNZ Pacific team, tō whā sui fua.